Work hard in silence. Let success make the noise. In a grand kingdom known for its wisdom and power, there was a highly respected minister who had a solution for every problem. The king trusted him completely, never making an important decision without consulting him. His presence in the royal court was undeniable, but so was the envy it inspired in others. Many of the other courtiers whispered behind his back, their jealousy growing like weeds in a lush garden. One day, as the morning sun bathed the royal palace in golden hues, the king confronted the minister with a perplexing comment. "You are an exceptional advisor, but your son is a fool," he declared. "Every day, he proves his lack of intelligence right before my eyes." The minister, though taken aback, maintained his composure. "Your Majesty, why do you believe my son is foolish?" he asked, his voice steady. The king leaned forward, his expression both amusing and exasperated. "Each morning, as I make my rounds to meet the people, your son stands among them. I ask him a simple question, which is more valuable, gold or silver? And every time he answers silver, the entire court laughs at his response." The room erupted in chuckles, courtiers nodding in agreement. The minister felt a twinge of discomfort. Without another word, he bowed and left the court, determined to uncover the truth behind his son's unusual behavior. Upon reaching his home, he found his son in the garden, calmly tending to the flowers. The minister wasted no time. "Son, which is more valuable, gold or silver?" he asked. His son responded immediately, "Gold, father." The minister's brows furrowed. "Then why do you tell the king otherwise? Why let the entire court mock you?" The young man smiled knowingly. "Father, every morning, the king places 2 coins before me, 1 gold and 1 silver. He asked me to choose the most valuable one. I always pick the silver coin, and the king laughs. He enjoys the moment and walks away." The minister's confusion deepened. "But why, my son? Why choose silver when you know gold is worth more?" His son gestured for him to follow. Together, they entered his room, where he opened a wooden box. The minister's eyes widened as he saw it overflowing with silver coins. "If I had chosen the gold coin once, the king would stop testing me," his son explained. "But by consistently picking silver, I ensure he continues playing this game. 1 gold coin would have been a one-time gain, but this way, I receive a steady stream of silver every day. Over time, I have amassed far more than a single gold coin." The minister was stunned. He had spent years advising the king on matters of state, but today, his son had taught him an invaluable lesson, one that transcended wealth. From that day forward, whenever anyone called his son a fool, the minister simply smiled. He had come to understand that true wisdom often appears foolish to those who fail to see beyond the surface. Patience and wisdom walk hand in hand. One without the other is incomplete. After learning the clever reasoning behind his son's choice, the minister could not help but admire his patience and foresight. He realized that his son had grasped something that many failed to understand, the power of long-term thinking. Yet the court continued to mock the young man. Day after day, the king would pose his question, and the son would confidently pick the silver coin, eliciting laughter from those who only saw the surface of the act. Some ministers even approached the king, whispering their disapproval. "Your Majesty," one of them said, shaking his head, "it is embarrassing that the son of your wisest minister cannot answer such a simple question correctly." Another chimed in, "Perhaps the minister's wisdom does not extend to his family. What if his advice to you is just as misguided?" The king, though entertained by the boy's behavior, began to consider their words. He decided to put the minister's son through a test that would prove whether he was truly foolish or wiser than he seemed. The next morning, instead of placing 2 coins before the boy, the king summoned him to the royal court. The grand hall was filled with courtiers eager to witness the spectacle. The minister stood among them, his face unreadable. The king addressed the young man, his tone serious. "For weeks you have chosen silver over gold. I have indulged in this amusement, but now I present to you a greater challenge. If you are truly wise, you will answer correctly." A servant stepped forward, holding 2 items: a magnificent golden crown adorned with precious gems and a simple wooden staff. The king gestured toward them. "Tell me, which of these holds the greatest value?" The court fell silent, waiting for the young man's response. Surely, they thought, this time he could not continue his charade. He would have to acknowledge the obvious worth of the golden crown. The minister's son studied both objects for a moment before speaking calmly. "It depends, Your Majesty." The king raised an eyebrow. "Explain. If we speak of material wealth, then the golden crown is more valuable. But if we speak of purpose, then the wooden staff is of greater worth." Murmurs spread through the court. The king leaned forward, intrigued. "And why is that?" The young man smiled. "Gold and jewels may shine, but they serve no purpose beyond decoration. A crown rests on a ruler's head, yet it does not make him wise, nor does it grant him power on its own. The wooden staff, however, aids those who walk. It supports the weary, guides the lost, and protects its bearer. In times of hardship, it is far more valuable than gold." A hush fell over the court. The ministers who had whispered doubts about the boy now exchanged uneasy glances. The king sat back on his throne, considering the young man's words. "You have given an answer that is both unexpected and wise," the king admitted. "Perhaps I have misjudged you." The young man bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty's true value is not always in what the eye can see. Sometimes, what appears lesser holds the greatest worth." The king nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. Though some in the court still scoffed, others began to see the young man in a new light. The minister, watching in silence, felt a deep sense of pride. His son had not only withstood the mockery of others, but had also proven that wisdom is not measured by what one owns, but by how one perceives the world. A wise man can see more from the bottom of a well than a fool can from a mountain top. The king, now more curious than ever, devised a final test. The next morning, instead of coins, he presented the boy with 2 objects: an ornate golden crown and a simple silver cup. "Today you must choose wisely," the king said. "One of these objects represents true power." The court fell silent as the young man observed the 2 items. He ran his fingers over the golden crown, its weight heavy with expectation. Then he picked up the silver cup, turning it in his hands. Without hesitation, he placed the cup in his palm and stepped back. A murmur spread through the court. The king narrowed his eyes. "Why?" he asked, his voice quieter than before. The young man smiled. "Your Majesty, gold shines, but it is heavy. It burdens the one who wears it. Silver, though less valued, serves a purpose. A cup can quench thirst. It can share the water. It can sustain life. True power is not in what dazzles the eye, but in what serves." For the first time, the king did not laugh. Instead, he studied the boy, realizing that the game he had played for amusement had become something far greater. The laughter in the court faded, replaced by thoughtful silence. The king, ever wise and observant, decided to test the young man further. One evening, he invited him to the palace and presented a golden bar alongside a simple silver bracelet. "Tell me, young man, which is more valuable?" the king asked, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity. The young man bowed respectfully. "Gold, Your Majesty," the courtiers murmured in surprise. "Then why do you always choose silver in the morning?" the king questioned. The young man met the king's gaze with confidence. "Because, Your Majesty, the true value is not in what we take once but in what we gain over time. Had I chosen gold at the beginning, this game would have ended, and I would have received only one coin. But by choosing silver daily, I have gained far more than a single gold piece. Sometimes, consistent small gains lead to far greater wealth than a single large prize." The king let out a hearty laugh, nodding in approval. "You are wiser than many in my court. Patience, strategy, and quiet success have served you well." From that day forward, the minister's son was no longer mocked but respected. His story became a lesson in wisdom, patience, and the power of quiet success. The laughter at his expense ceased, replaced instead with admiration. Those who once ridiculed him now seek his counsel. His approach to life had proven that sometimes appearing the fool to the world is the greatest wisdom of all. And so, the minister's son continued his journey, never boasting, never showing off, just quietly succeeding, one silver coin at a time.